Usman, DDP. These two guys, they're finally going to go at it this Saturday night. It's going to be great. It's going to be worth the wait. We had that little hiccup in between the White House card and now, but now we're back on track for real this time. No mistaking this time. But, honestly, I have a particular opinion about this, how it can go out. It kind of ties into everything that's been going on, the injury of McGregor, and also what happened to Ilya at the White House. We all know that DDP has a particular weakness, and that weakness is him being vulnerable to being taken down. And on top of that, once he gets taken down, he's able to be controlled on the ground because he's unfortunately more of a he's a big guy. He's a bulky guy, and that doesn't play to his advantage because he's the bigger guy. When someone is controlling him on the ground, all he really does is try to muscle up, try to maneuver them with strictly his strength, brute strength his way out of those bad positions. But that didn't work out when he fought a technician like Hamzat. Instead, he found himself continuously in those uncomfortable positions. And Usman, on the other hand, he will take DDP down, or he has the capability to do so. And that's going to be the first thing on his mind. I'll explain why a little bit later, but that will be the first thing on his mind to take him down and get him to the fence. That's where he'll have the most success to take anyone down. So why wouldn't he do the same to DDP? But it won't work out like that. Probably not, because different from Hamza, whereas Hamza likes to threaten submissions and get you to move yourself or maneuver yourself into worse positions so he can capitalize on your own mistakes. Usman doesn't quite do that. Instead, it's him in half guard or full guard, ground and pounding here and there, finding and picking his shots, posturing up here and there. So that would give DDP opportunity to get out of those positions. Although it is very not probable, but it would be a safe bet to assume that Usman could get him down. And that would be the first thing on his mind. His first goal, his first task in his head is to take him down. But once there, the type of game he plays, it gives DDP the opportunity to get out. But, okay, this is where I wanted to get into that whole issue of him being on a one-track mind, of him trying to take down DDP because there's this obvious weakness, this vulnerability. There's another reason to it other than that DDP is susceptible to being taken down, and it's the fact that Usman's knees are not the same and have not been the same for a large period of his career. And recently I watched a Mighty Mouse podcast video, him and Izzy, their new podcast, and there was these, I watched a clip really. I watched a clip in that video, or from that video, and it revealed to me important information. The McGregor thing happened, that incident where he messed his knee up in the fight at the beginning, the very earliest moments, and unfortunately that called the fight then and there, and it didn't get to play out, and people didn't get to see McGregor's head being in, or people didn't get to see McGregor turn back the clock. So back to Demetrius. So his injury, he had a fibula injury in one of his earlier fights, and he had to fight through that. But he couldn't put weight on his leg. So you know what that meant? That meant the striking went out the window. It went out the window, and Demetrius Johnson had no choice but to grapple and take his opponent down and fight that way. And now we look back at Usman. Now, what did happen in Usman's last fight with Buckley? It seemed like he had one track mind. He only wanted to take him down. There was no other option, even though it seemed like, maybe my memory's a bit foggy, but I couldn't remember that Usman was kind of calling for a Canelo fight. He said, or he wasn't the one saying he had Canelo hands. That was Bilal, but he was convinced that he could go toe to toe with Canelo in a boxing ring. But in that fight with Buckley, his boxing went out of it just disappeared. It vanished. It was no longer equipped to him. Instead, he was on the losing side of things when the stand-up was in play. So, has his knees gone worse? I would say it's very probable that they have. I mean, there's been a lot of time, a lot of layoffs in between fights. There was that Hamza fight, a little bit of a 2-year gap, then that Buckley fight, now a little bit over a year now. And now he's fighting DDP, another layoff, a micro layoff kind of, but DDP is also has a layoff now. But this has me terrified for his knees because perhaps the reason why he wasn't able to strike or go tit for tat with Buckley is because his knees, they're not giving, or he's not able to bear as much weight on them like he used to. So that's not an option anymore. If he wants to win, if he wants to last for the duration of the fight and not get beat up standing up because he's too afraid to move in and move out or put on a barrage of shots, then he's gonna have to take his opponent down. But that opens up him, that makes him vulnerable. That creates a vulnerability in him that if, let's say, DDP gets his game going and he's able to put on pressure and he's able to put on volume, he's able to kick low, kick high, kick to the body, kick everywhere, and then strike and blitz and all that jazz that ends up accumulating. And this is where I fear that Usman may suffer a similar fate to Ilya, because in the fight with Ilya and Justin, what ended up happening is Ilya was kind of stiff. He was in position to be hit over and over again in the face, and he was too strong-willed, too stubborn to just call it quits, that his brother had to step in, even after an eye doctor stepped in a little bit earlier and tried to call off the fight, and it ended up going on another round. He's too stubborn. He's too much of a champion, and I believe that Usman, this is his last resolve. This is the only place where he's going to have success now. There is no route. He said this, or he tried to deny the fact that this is an easier track to race on. But if you look at what's going down in welterweight, everyone's passing him up. There's a lot of consistent fighters, and they're erasing the memory of Usman. So this is his last opportunity. This is the last place he has to be king. But unfortunately, he's fighting a guy who likes to put volume on, who's bigger than him, more massive, and that's just not going to play well if he has no knees or doesn't have the knees to support him in the stand up, and his grappling doesn't end up working out, or it leaves enough openings for DDP to get the fight standing up, and over time DDP will gain back that resolve. He's always strong-willed throughout the entirety of his fights, and what that does, that puts Usman in a bad position. DDP will capitalize off of it and rain down a lot of shots on him, head kicks, this and that. Not sure if it'll knock him clean out, but it will continue to bruise and batter him until he is no longer recognizable, until his iPhone's Face ID doesn't work anymore. It's gonna be bad for Usman. It's gonna be bad for Usman. I believe so. That is my belief going into this fight. I just don't see him being able to control DDP like Hamza, or I don't see him to control DDP like his former opponents. DDP is just too strong. And unlike Buckley, he does use his legs a little more on the ground, on bottom. And also, DDP is much more massive than Buckley. So it lead me to believe that he can muscle his way out of this, because Usman, this is what is it, his third time? Oh no, his second time at middleweight? Maybe his third time. I don't remember. I know there was that middleweight fight with Hamza, but I think there might have been another. So he's going to be smaller than DDP. He's going to have messed up knees and more messed up than they were before, and he won't be able to strike with DDP. He'll be a sitting duck, but he'll be too stubborn to call it quits. He won't give up on himself, and at the end of the fight, or at the end of the day, I believe a referee will have to call it off. I believe there's going to be a doctor stoppage in this fight. That is my belief, and that's really all I have to say on this matter. Thank you for watching. Like the video, subscribe, and that's all. See you next time.